the VR Report podcast with David Jean O.
Welcome to the VR Report. I chat with Steven Rogers, an indie developer behind the mixed reality game CoasterMania. The biggest challenge for VR developers is to get their game noticed to attract sales. However, Steven shares how he was able to get on the first page of Reddit by building a loyal following on Discord. Friends, here's Steven Rogers.
Hi, how are you doing, David?
Good, man. For those who don't know you, you want to give an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like David said, my name's Steven Rogers. I am the founder of a VR, AR video game studio called Fourth Wall Breakers, and currently working on our first title called CoasterMania, where you're creating roller coasters in your room in a mixed reality environment. Yeah.
I love CoasterMania because I used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon, and building your own roller coaster rides and then imagining if you're other people enjoying your rides. So it's kind of a thrill. Steven, we were hanging out at Connect this year, which was really awesome. Now that they're back, did you have a good time? What were your postmortem thoughts on the conference?
I absolutely loved it. It was my second conference overall, lifetime. So it was definitely interesting to be there on Meta Campus, get to see how everything works behind the scenes as well. The presentations themselves, I was super excited for the new Quest 3 coming out. The new Ray-Ban glasses look pretty interesting as well. I'm not as much of an AI guy, but I'll see where it goes in the future if it piques my attention.
Cool.
The Snoop Dogg part was definitely a treat.
Did you used to play Dungeons and Dragons?
I did not, no.
Okay.
My introduction to D&D and role-playing games is Demio from the
cool.
VR game. So
yeah. Are you looking forward to Demio? Did you try that? Yes, on Quest 3?
I played it like maybe 2 years ago on the Quest 2. Actually, back one of the first games that I was working on doing contract work was a game called Hands on Deck, where it was a board game simulator, and we were building that, and then Demio came out, and I was like, oh, we should take some notes. And it's a pretty good game they got there.
Cool. Steven, you have a really unique history because you don't come from a traditional game development background or maybe even like a 3D type background. Can you explain your origin story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have a background in computer science. I went to school for computer science and have a bachelor's there. During college, though, I was just learning how to program and noticed an ad for learning how to, or I guess not learning, but teaching, I guess, game development and computer science concepts like robotics and what else have you, all the computer science realm. And I thought that was interesting, so I applied for a job, and soon enough I became a TA for a class teaching how to make Unity games. And then from there, I had to kind of learn the curriculum as I was teaching it. And that's how I learned how to become a developer for Unity, and then ended up being the lead of the class, and went from there, started working on my own games, and turned into contract work, and now my first title.
That's cool. And so your first title, CoasterMania, it blew up on a lot of the social channels just because people are really excited about the mixed reality features that you currently have. Can you explain or describe the development experience for developing MR mixed reality for the Quest 3?
Yeah, I mean, mixed reality is definitely a very interesting genre of development. It's very similar to VR, but it has so many nuances to it that are nothing like VR, that it's kind of like a whole new, I like to call it the new frontier, kind of going out west and exploring trying to, not necessarily hunting for gold, but trying to find what is new and what's relevant and how to actually make it work. So there's definitely a lot of considerations with mixed reality and making it fit for anyone's room.
For a new developer, what do you feel are some of the biggest challenges for developing for mixed reality today?
I think a lot of it is just a knowledge base of what works and what doesn't work. Right now, just because it's so brand new, no one really knows like the solid concepts behind mixed reality. One thing for CoasterMania that we're introducing is puzzles, and how do we adapt these puzzles into people's play spaces and making sure that it works in a living room versus a bedroom versus a kitchen. It's very difficult to make sure it works in every single edge case and having the tools to test each edge case too. But there's definitely tricks behind that you can do. One thing that we're doing for CoasterMania is we're checking distances between your player and the wall, and then spawning content relative to that distance. So that's kind of some behind the scenes CoasterMania. Yeah.
Yeah, so for CoasterMania, that's really interesting that you actually have to actually pre-conceptualize the different environments the players are going to be at. How do you go about conceptualizing those different types of experiences for those players? I mean, it can be very unique, but at the same time, are you having to design courses, or at least if the player designs those courses, can you elaborate on that experience of pre-conceptualizing the different environments?
Definitely. So, like you said, CoasterMania, a lot of it is on the user to create the experience. So it alleviates a lot of the stress of having to place stuff procedurally in the room. Though with puzzle mode, it's starting to add all that elements in there. I'll say one of the things that has been saving me so much time is Meta's new XR simulator, where you can directly download your room, your scan, put it up on the editor, and then you don't even have to put on the headset anymore, and you can test building stuff throughout that space. So that's been a lifesaver for me over the last couple of weeks since they announced it. But yeah.
So being able to have these like templatized rooms, that way you don't have to put on a headset, but then you can kind of visualize or at least expect what the player will design in a real space. Can you explain how you go about designing for people who are creating their own designs essentially?
Yeah, a lot of the design concepts is how do you utilize the room as much as you can. So CoasterMania, obviously, you can create tracks throughout your whole entire room, but how do I incentivize people to create hops that are hopping from one side of their couch to the other? How do I make it swirl around a lamp or whatever? And these different concepts are things that I'm exploring to try to make sure people are not just using pass-through as a background, but actually using the space and making it unique.
And that's pretty cool because one of the new features for Quest 3, especially through mixed reality, is that you're now able to have occlusion with virtual items. So for example, you may have, you have a lot of like coaster jumps. I don't know if that's the terminology.
Yeah, jump is the word I'm using. So yeah.
Yeah. So when you're jumping, you might have like a specific platform, but that virtual item also has occlusion within it. So now when that coaster is able to jump and land on that platform, it's just more realistic. But that's also kind of a breakthrough because they didn't have that before. So are you capitalizing some of those features to really design?
They definitely. Experiences? For sure. With the Quest 3, specifically their new mesh API, where you can grab the mesh environment from the headset, I've been using that for not only occlusion, but as well for collision. So one of the things that's a ton of fun to do is to create a roller coaster and just make the cart crash into stuff, and seeing it crash directly on your couch. Or I made a trailer where it crashed into my toilet, and it's just a bunch of different cool things that I don't know. I'm sure people are gonna come up with very creative use cases that I haven't even thought of.
So how did the game even come about? How did you decide to build CoasterMania?
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, while we're working on Hands on Deck, we've been working on that for about a year roughly. And during that time, I was kind of just getting bored of it and just wanting to move on to something new. So I started prototyping a little bit and thought, hey, roller coasters are cool. I go to Universal like almost every year for theme park attraction stuff. So I wanted to make my own roller coaster. So I started off in VR, just creating this very simple spline system where you can draw just a little curve. Um, and that was fun. And then didn't touch it for roughly like a year or so, just sitting in a corner, gathering dust. And then one day I was just scrolling through my computer, going through all the different prototypes that I'd made, seeing that one was like, huh, I can do this a little bit better. It was very not user friendly at the time. So I started exploring that. And then from there, I decided to post some of my explorations to Reddit. And that's where it started to pop off. Started getting like 500 likes, then 1,000 likes, 2,000 likes. Then decided to post it on a different subreddit, and it got 100,000 likes and ended up going the front page, top of the top uh, Reddit post. So that was super exciting. Yeah.
That's mental for a lot of developers just to get on the front page, especially with their experiences in VR. That's like a dream come true. What strategies did you use to make that happen, or was this just super organic? Like, break it down. How you did it.
Yeah.
Uh, what did you do, and how did it become so successful?
Definitely. I mean, it kind of ties into my origin story a little bit too. So as I graduated college, I started. Obviously, I love prototyping, so I was prototyping right after college, and I started posting different little prototypes on Reddit, and those seemed to get a decent reaction. And from there, I said I was looking for a job and got hired to start working on different games. Um, but I think for me, Reddit has really just been a source of sharing what I've been working on. It's not been a source of like, hey, I want to make money on this product and I'm trying to promote this idea. It's just, hey, I made a cool thing. I want the world to see it. Um, and I've just been doing that ever since, and so far it seems to work.
That's cool. And in terms of the Reddit community, I think that's super important for a lot of developers. Reddit is a great forum because you can reach a large audience, not just developers, but also just consumers and fans of VR. But in terms of cultivating that audience, you built a cool thing, you want people to check it out, but are they giving you feedback that you then react to and then provide updates based on that feedback?
Definitely. So from the very first post of CoasterMania, I saw how big of a reaction it got and had so many comments and suggestions of what to do that I decided to open up a Discord channel to funnel people into there and give me more ideas. And since then, that's grown to like over 1,000 people in our Discord. And um, the more posts that I made, I decided, hey, I want to have a beta system for people to try out the game early and give even more feedback. So that's been just a natural progression of being able to gather people's interest and then taking them into the community, getting them excited about the game, and then getting direct feedback.
That's awesome. When you're building a community on Discord, how active do you have to be? What does kind of the moderation look like for a community that you're trying to grow around your product, and they're going to be the best evangelists around that product?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got lucky starting off. When I created the Discord, I had about like 100 people join at first, and one of those people was a avid moderator that had been moderating Discord channels left and right. So he suggested that, or asked if he could be a moderator for our Discord, and he's kind of been handling a lot of the behind the scenes, creating all the correct channels, making sure people aren't posting inappropriate content. So that's been kind of a lifesaver, and haven't really had to deal with much of the moderation side. But one of the things to really cultivate your audience, you want to make sure that people are engaged in the game and trying to promote, I guess, what is interesting in it. And one of the cool features for CoasterMania is that you can not only create a roller coaster, but then you can share it online. People can download it and try it out. So Discord has been kind of this source for people to share their creations. People can then download them later, and it's just grown from that. Yeah.
Well, what if you're not as lucky as you are to have someone who's like a pro moderator that wants to join the community? What are some tips, do you think, for someone starting out to be able to cultivate that type of excitement around the community?
Yeah. I think it starts off with like the language that you present when people join the Discord. We set up a rules and moderation post at the very beginning saying, hey, no hate speech, no blah blah blah. I feel like that has been a good source for if there ever is something to pops up, we're like, hey, look at this, you violated it, we need to kick you out. But on top of that, it's just really trying to start the conversation and leaning in the direction that you want the community to go in, rather than just letting them all go loose and, I don't know, post whatever they want to.
Right. I think that's super key for a lot of developers to understand. Building a community on Discord, these are going to be the first people that are going to be evangelizing for your product. Creating a safe place, obviously, considering that this is also a new technology, you want people to feel really comfortable. And that's really important with how people are treating each other in these communities. And also, you've just been active with regular posts. Can you tell me like how you go about doing that? Is there kind of like a master plan that you put out for these scheduled posts, or is it just still very organic?
Right now, it's definitely more organic than it used to be. When I first started off, I was posting maybe once every week, every 2 weeks on Reddit, just to kind of gauge excitement and doing all that. Now I've been doing a lot more grunt work on the game, so I have a little less time to be able to actually promote it, it feels weird. But I kind of have a strategy in mind for how to get that back into the ecosystem of sharing, and hoping to be able to get the community to post for me rather than me have to constantly shoot out a new thing to remind people. Yeah.
Are you providing like rewards or within the Discord community or the community that you built? Are there regular check-ins to get like real-time feedback from the audience? And are you having Q&A sessions? What are you doing there?
Definitely. Well, so we have the beta program, which I created very early on. Has about 100 people in there that are constantly testing the game, new different versions, making sure there's not that many bugs. It obviously still ships with bugs here and there. But that has kind of been my front of the line, getting feedback and reactions, seeing changes, seeing if people like stuff, if they don't, and then from there it goes out to the larger community. And yeah.
Now, for traditional games, especially playtesting is one of the most important things to get developer feedback. Is the fun there? Where are people getting stuck? What are the challenges bugs that we need to squash? For user-generated content, though, that becomes very different because it's not very like, being able to observe what the players are doing, because players are actually building. And I think the building process is the fun process as well. That's the bulk of it, right? Like, how am I going to design this? And, what am I trying to get? Like, if someone's writing this thing, what are they trying to experience? Tell me about how you're going through, user playtest when it's all around user generated content?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is seeing what people end up making and seeing what they want to make. And from there, encouraging, different elements, whether if people are creating really tiny roller coasters, I want to make sure that like add different tools that makes the roller coaster speed up to incentivize the roller coaster to go on further. Um, so there's different elements there that have to come into play. There's still plenty of exploration to do as well. Right now, we're on App Lab and we're aiming to be able to go to the official store. And during that process, it's going to be a lot of polish and curation and making sure it's a very solid experience. But so far, it's been great to see the community even trying out the game and being excited about it.
Yeah, so that's like straight. Let's talk about App Lab, because App Lab is a place where a lot of developers can launch a title, get feedback, and basically have a testing ground with a community of players to then officiate or sanction it for the store, which is also trials and tribulations by itself, right? Because for Meta, there's only so many titles that they can support every year, right? And App Lab is a great way to like see what rises to the top. And your title is one of those that I think has been gaining a lot of that traction, which is awesome. Tell me about like your experience as a developer on App Lab. What should developers know if they're developing for, with of course, trying to get into the store, but they want to solicit that feedback to get on App Lab first. So what was your experience like? And provide some tips for developers trying to get that right feedback on App Lab.
Definitely. So I think one of the key things that has helped me progress a lot further on the game has been being introduced to Oculus Start, which is a program for App Lab developers that is a whole community of getting different feedback from developers and from Meta themselves and getting kind of eyes and ears. I kind of got lucked out when my post went viral and hit the front page. I had about 4 or 5 different Meta employees reach out to me. It's like, hey, you should talk to this person. You should talk to this person. And then Rita, the head of Oculus Start, reached out to me and got introduced to Oculus Start. And that's been a really great experience over there. So I'd recommend, if you're not in the Oculus Start program, to definitely apply. And it's a great service that they're doing over there.
Rita is a legend in the space, championing the Oculus Start program. She also has a background for being at the early days of Unity. What other ways, while being part of the Oculus Start program, should developers know to get more noticed without being on the front page of Reddit? What do you think are some tips now in hindsight?
I think one of the things that, had I gone back in the past, is making sure that everything is more polished, I guess, before you present it to people. I think once you get a first impression, it's a lasting impression. So if they see something once, they're not going to be as interested in seeing it later. So you want to make sure that it's a good first visual thing. Luckily, mixed reality is so new that anyone that posts mixed reality stuff generally does fairly well on social media platforms. So that's definitely a kicker. I started off posting in VR. That's where it was like 500 likes. And then as soon as I posted mixed reality support, it boomed instantly to 2,000. So it's people are definitely interested in mixed reality and hand tracking too. Yeah.
Also, can you talk about your experience? Because your experience doesn't rely on hand tracking, but I can see that being more natural, or maybe it's like after you build your roller coaster, you can actually interact maybe with each car, but using your hands to be more intimate. What other ways do you see hand tracking? Is that going to be part of your game, or just kind of share your example of what your experience with the new hand tracking today?
Yeah, I mean, I love hand tracking. I've made so many different prototypes with it. I think it's a great use case, and it's super easy to teach people because you don't have to make them know where all the buttons are. It's just all very intuitive. The issue with hand tracking CoasterMania is with roller coasters and really any building game, you really want some form of precision and knowing exactly where you want to place stuff. And hand tracking, as it currently stands, is not precise enough to where it feels very good to be able to um, create, I guess. You don't have the same level of precision. But the other aspect there is that you don't have any buttons to map to with hand tracking. And obviously, my game, like you're creating, you want to be able to draw stuff, but you also want to be able to delete stuff and duplicate and play, pause the roller coaster, a bunch of different inputs that you can't really do with a hand. I have considered different tactics for doing it. It's just right now controller support is the easiest to do.
Cool.
Yeah. Hopefully in the future, maybe I can do a hand tracking update, but not the focus currently.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. I think that would add a totally new dimension.
There's a lot of cool things that are happening in mixed reality. One thing I really appreciate about one of your videos that went super viral is that you had your cat in the video, and one of the comments had said like, "Oh, no animals were injured in this video." And I expect a future where, one feature would be to be able to track pets. So when they come inside and affect your gameplay or they're in your field of view, we can track that animal, or maybe it's even a child, and that actually affects the gameplay. What future features do you think are going to be cool for mixed reality, and why?
Yeah, I definitely love that cat concept. I had an idea for one app where it's kind of like a Snapchat filter, but it's for your cat specifically, so you can put little top hats and different stuff. So if we could do that in mixed reality, I feel like that could be a lot of fun. In terms of other features that I'd love to see, I would love to see texture support for the pass-through, being able to actually grab that information and be able to apply it to the mesh that's generated from the headset. One of the things that people, obviously, when they want to create a roller coaster, they want to be able to ride it in first person as well. And I have that, but it transitions to kind of a VR play space terrain kind of thing. And with the newest update that I pushed out to the Quest 3, I introduced the mesh where you can actually ride through your furniture. You can kind of see the large scale version of your couch and be able to drive underneath the table and feel like you're actually doing that. But if I had that texture information, it would actually look like your room rather than some kind of green and round terrain, random looking thing. But
that would be so cool. So having your couch, like that fabric pattern, that texture in the gameplay with your roller coaster, that would be super sick. That's cool. Have you been following up with OpenXR and the extensions that they have for Unity LTS? What do you think about OpenXR today?
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, obviously, it looks like new headsets are coming to the horizon with Apple's new Vision Pro, and I'm sure HTC and all the other big companies are coming out with new mixed reality support. Having the OpenXR platform to have a space where you can create something once and not have to be able to port it to other stuff is a time saver and is a great use case, especially with Unity's new AR foundation. I'm super excited to start digging into that more, so that you can build for Meta and Apple and make it all work seamlessly without having to touch a thing.
Yeah, I think being able to have interoperability, especially while building, and be able to support your applications with as much ease as possible is good for developers, business-wise. What other advice do you have for developers from a business standpoint as a solo developer today?
That's a good question. I'd say start prototyping early, and try to create things that haven't been seen before. I think VR is such a new medium that it's being wasted on people trying to create like 20 or 30 different shooters. And not to throw shade at any of the games out there, but um, I would love to see more exploration in the space and trying to create something new and novel, because it's such a new and novel medium to create stuff. I think one of the core aspects of mixed reality is being able to utilize your play space, and being able to not just use it as a background, like I've been saying previously, but to actually utilize your space to be able to walk around your room and be able to create stuff within the environment. One awesome example that I'm a great fan of is Laser Dance by Thomas Van Baal. He is creating a game where you duck and dive between lasers, kind of like Mission Impossible style, trying to get from one end of your room to the other. And this is a game that wouldn't have been possible with VR, or really any other medium till now. And the fact that you can actually see your space, you're not going to run into your furniture and smack your TV off the wall. So being able to explore what makes your room such a good place to play games in is my advice.
That's cool. Yeah, I really love that experience and the example that you gave, because you're able to really there's no way you can do that other than mixed reality, because you could have done it with Lighthouse, like on the Vive. There's some laser type games earlier. I don't know if Thomas worked on those, but those are challenging because, yeah, just like you said, you knock over your furniture. I always ask this, Stephen, what are your predictions in the short term and in the long term for mixed reality development and mixed reality?
Yeah, I think long-term predictions for the VR and mixed reality space, I think there's kind of two paradigms right now that Meta exploring with their Ray-Ban glasses versus the mixed reality headset, and bulky versus small, tiny thing that looks inconceivable to normal glasses. I have noticed a prevalence of people going towards those glasses, the slimmer, less tech, but better form factor. I feel like we're probably going to start seeing more and more tech going into that, but maybe a smaller incentive into the mixed reality space until we start getting that gap to a good spot.
Yeah, I think with the more portable glasses like the spectacles or the X-Reals and even the Ray-Bans, I see a future where before these optics become very advanced for spatial computing in these lightweight glasses, there's going to be more like different surface areas that you can use, like, for example, just your computer screen or just your mobile phone screen. And I think that hasn't been really, leveraged yet. And I think those are going to be just new experiences that are going to be pretty cool. That's awesome. What are some of the short-term predictions?
Short-term predictions. That is a great question. I don't know. I'm so delved into what's currently here that I haven't touched half the new stuff, that I don't really want new things till I can touch every single aspect of what's available. That's not to say I would love brand new features, but the short term, I think, obviously, I feel like headsets are going to get smaller. I feel like there's going to be a lot more processing power. Something I would love to see is cloud support. I feel like there's kind of talks of it for a bit and then kind of went away. But if we can move all that compute to the cloud and make those headsets super tiny, then that's going to be a huge win for everybody. But I guess we'll see how that pans out.
That's awesome. Stephen, thank you so much for your time, my man.
Absolutely. Thank you. It was great being here, David.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you later.